Dear learners and listeners, Namaskar. Today, we are going to continue our discussion on Becoming Aware of the World Around Us, Part 2. In the last program, we talked about that how we sense the world around us. We talked about and we got to know that there are two main senses, which is vision and hearing, and how do they help us in sensing and becoming aware of the world around us. In today's program, we are going to talk about other senses that are other than vision and audition, as well as we will be discussing about mind, that is conscious, subconscious and unconscious part of our cells, and how does that help in sensing and experiencing the world in which we live in. Let us start our discussion with the cutaneous senses. The skin or cutaneous senses give us information about the surface of our body. Skin could be considered as a giant sense organ that covers the entire human body. Skin senses, also called somesthetic system, consist of number 1 pressure and touch, number 2 temperature sensation, which is cold and warmth, and number 3 pain. It has been found that the skin is not uniformly sensitive throughout the body but has differential sensitivity. Now, what is differential sensitivity? That is, points of greatest sensitivity to touch, cold, warmth and pain are differently located in the human body. Some areas are more sensitive to touch, other to pain, and so on. Let's talk about pressure and touch. The amount of pressure which is required to produce the experience of pressure varies greatly for different parts of the body. The tip of the tongue, the tips of the fingers and the hands are the more sensitive areas of the body. The experience of touch is felt if we apply gentle pressure on the skin, or if we slightly move or touch the hair on the body. It is believed that a fairly complex structure called mucinous corpusculus serves the pressure sense in the hairless regions of the body. The nerve endings do the same for the roots of the hairs. It is believed that free nerve endings convey touch impulses. Sensing the temperature, experiences of cold and warmth are felt by changes in normal gradient of the skin temperature. That is, difference, which is gradient between skin surface temperature and the blood temperature. It is believed that free nerve endings appear to be responsible for signaling information about temperature. Pain. Let us talk about another side of pain, which one has never thought of. Pain has great significance in human life, though we would prefer not to experience it. It has immense biological importance because it signals that something is wrong within the body. If pain sensations were not there, we could bleed to death without being aware of the wound. So, pain is a friend, not enemy. There is evidence that free nerve endings are the receptors stimulated by tissue damage. It is believed that the free nerve endings of pain spots must be specialized in some way to respond to painful stimuli. That is, free nerve endings are specialized to pick up and convey different body conditions. Let's come up to the other sense, which is the sense of taste. The sense of taste or the gustatory system has 4 basic tastes: salty, sour, sweet and bitter. The tongue is not uniformly sensitive to all stimuli. For example, back of the tongue is sensitive to bitter stimuli and the tip of the tongue to sweet. The sides of the tongue respond mainly to the sour stimuli and the tip and part of the sides respond to salty solutions. Taste buds contain hair cells that are the taste receptors. People on an average possess about 10,000 such taste buds. The taste buds are spread all across the surface and sides of the tongue, and some are located in other regions of the mouth. However, they are mostly found clumped together on the tongue and are called papillae. Most of the papillae have grooves, that is moats, around the sides, and when we eat or drink something, the liquid in the mouth fill up these grooves around the papillae and stimulate the hair cells chemically. The cells on their part send sensory message to the brain and results in the sensation of taste. Another sense is the sense of smell. Smell or the olfactory system provides information about chemical compounds suspended in the air. We have three main senses that respond to stimuli at a distance: smell, hearing and vision. Smell is the most primitive of these three. Though smell is a minor sense in human beings, it greatly adds to our enjoyment of food and appreciation of perfumes and deodorants. In contrast, smell is of vital importance to many animals like dogs. Dogs and other animals use this sense to locate food, prey, etc. Olfactory receptors are located high up in the nasal passage leading from the nostrils to the throat. These receptors lie in two small patches, one on the left and other on the right in the roofs of this passage. These receptors are embedded in a mucus coated membrane which is called olfactory epithelium. These receptors lie a little off the main root of the air. Chemicals that are suspended in the air pass through the nasal passages and stimulate the olfactory receptors which connect the olfactory nerve. Human beings can distinguish among about 10,000 different odors. Interestingly, females are somewhat more sensitive and accurate than males in odor recognition. Deep senses. One group of senses perform the function of informing the organism about its movement and its orientation in the space. The collection of two different senses, that is kinesthetic and vestibular systems, is called deep senses. Let's know about them. Number 1. The kinesthetic system. Skeletal movement of the body is sensed through kinesthesis, a collective term for all the information that we get from receptors in the muscles, tendons and joints. It provides us information about the movement of the body as well as information about bodily posture and orientation. Of course, vision helps us a lot in this respect. The second is the vestibular system. Another group of receptors located in the inner ear signal the rotation of the head. These are receptors in the semicircular canals which are located within the vestibular apparatus of the inner ear. The three canals in the ear contain viscous liquid that moves when the head is rotated. The motion of this liquid bends hair cells that are located at one end of each canal. When bent, these hair cells give rise to nerve impulses that provide information about the nature and extent of head movement or rotation. At the end of the semicircular canals are the vestibular sacs, which contain hair cells that are sensitive to the specific angle of the head. It provides information about the position of the head straight up and down or tilted. This system responds to gravity and keeps us informed about our body's location in space. So learners, this was all about the different sense organs which help us in sensing the world around us. Let us come up to the next objective of today's discussion, which is mind, brain and consciousness. You already know the role of the senses in providing information about the external and internal world that we have just discussed. However, receiving information from the external world and transmitting the same to the brain is just half the story. The chain of events start from stimulus reception through our senses and ends up in reports such as beautiful flower, a bitter taste or bright green. That is, how do we give meaning to what we have sensed. This sensory experience that we get from stimulus through our receptors is a process and a product. The end outcome is what we call perception, which we will be discussing in the upcoming programs. However, we are going to know about how our brain processes the information received from our senses into a conscious sensory experience. Usually, our conscious experience, which is perception, is a result of processing of information that we receive from different sense modalities. Example, vision, audition, touch, etc. That is, all these systems and other sense organs also helps us in the receiving and processing the information with the help of these very senses. So, what we experience is a product of contributions that is made by different sense organs or modalities that results in a conscious sensory experience or sensation. Let's know about consciousness. We become aware of the world around us through our consciousness. Consciousness is a state of awareness of external and internal events experienced by an individual. In ordinary waking state, that is consciousness, we are aware of what is going on around us. We are aware of our thoughts, feelings, desires, perceptions, etc. On the other hand, if one falls down unconscious due to low blood pressure, one is not aware of all that is happening around the person. When this person gains consciousness, he or she does not know all that was being done to revive him or her. The state of consciousness, however, keeps on changing even during the waking state. We keep performing many actions at a particular time, some consciously, some automatically. For example, while driving a car, we keep talking to the person sitting by our side, and during this period when we are busy talking, we are not conscious or aware when we lifted our foot from the acceleration pedal, pressed upon the clutch, changed the gear and again started accelerating. That is, we were not aware of the process of how we were driving. In this example, the driver was paying attention to the conversation with the other person, which is a conscious act, while the driving part was automatic without our being conscious. Though we can perform one action at a time where allocation of attention is required, we can simultaneously carry on other tasks if it is highly learned, because it becomes automatic and no conscious control is required. Just as I discussed the case of driving and simultaneously talking to the other person who is sitting behind you. But think of a driver who is learning to drive. He will not be able to talk and drive because both the tasks require allocation of attention or conscious effort. What is the difference between computers and human beings, or what are the similarities between computers and human beings? It is interesting to compare computer and human being. Modern computers are impressive, but none can match the amazing abilities packed within the human brain. In some ways, computer may be considered to be superior to human beings. For example, the memory of a computer could be more than that of human being. Further, computer can process large number of variables simultaneously, that is also known as parallel processing. On the other hand, human being is basically capable of serial processing, that is one task at a time. For example, if you read a book which needs attention to grasp the material, you cannot listen to the music simultaneously unless the music does not require any attention. That is, multitasking in reading and listening to music is not possible. However, tasks which are highly practiced like driving a car can be executed with other tasks that require attentional resources. That means one task is being performed automatically, that is without conscious control, and the other under conscious control. It is important to note that no computer can perform the function of thinking, at least presently. No computer is equipped enough to think. Computer has no emotions, imagery, insight, desires, motives and creativity that a human brain has. Computer can perform to the extent the hardware and programs allow. On the other hand, human brain is capable of performing various cognitive and affective functions without any limit. The most important difference between the two is that human beings has consciousness whereas the computer does not. Mind is often considered a functional correlate of brain. Our thoughts, memory, mental images, reasoning, decision making and so on are all aspects of the human mind. Brain has a physical structure, for example, neurons, and some physiological action is generated whenever the brain works. Its psychological correlate is what we call mind. The cognitive functions of the brain are what we call the functioning of the mind. The process of socialization and learning experience a human being undergoes amount to programming the hardware, that is the brain, the human being inherits. Let's talk about the levels of consciousness. We had already discussed the levels of consciousness in the previous programs. Let's know more about it. Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, believed that human mind has three distinct levels: the conscious, the preconscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind includes our current thoughts, whatever we are thinking or experiencing at a given movement. Beneath this conscious realm is the much larger preconscious. The preconscious contains memories that are not part of current thought but can be readily brought to mind, which is to conscious if need arises. Finally, there is unconscious. This part of the mind has been compared to iceberg, of which the major portion is concealed. The unconscious contains thoughts, desires and impulses of which we remain largely unaware. Human behavior reflects all the three levels of consciousness. However, many psychologists do not accept these three levels of consciousness. The first level, that is consciousness, is well accepted by all. The preconscious is what we called stored material or memory, and the material can be retrieved when required. However, the third level, that is unconscious, is very controversial, and most of the psychologists, especially the experimental or cognitive psychologists, do not accept this level at all. So learners, this was all about becoming aware of the world around us, in which we got to know that how the different sense organs helps us in experiencing the world around us, and how we can compare, or what is the comparison between the computers and human mind, as well as we also talked about the three levels of consciousness. This was all for becoming aware of the world around us. Now, let us sum up what we have learned in the following points. First, the sense organs are our windows to collect information from the external world. 10 different senses can be identified in human beings. These are vision, audition, tactile, warmth, cold, pain, smell, taste, kinesthetic and vestibular. The specific sense organ transforms the physical energy, that is information, into neural signals and transmits those to the brain. This message is decoded and processed in the brain, which leads to perception. The most developed and often used sense organ in human beings is vision. Light waves are the stimuli for eyes. The visual receptors, which is called rods and cones, are activated by the light waves. We also talked about the auditory sense. The auditory receptors in the ears respond to sound waves. The sound waves are produced by pressure changes in the atmosphere. The ear has three major divisions, which are the outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. The skin, which is a cutaneous sense, provides information about the surface of our body. We can sense taste, which is gustation, with the help of our tongue. The sense of smell, which is olfaction, is sensed by the nose. The kinesthetic and vestibular are the group of senses which inform the organism about its own movement and orientation. And the kinesthetic and vestibular are also known as deep senses. With this, I end up for today's program. Hope you have understood the concepts in it. Thank you.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने,
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो, धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो,
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।